Hey bag ladies and bag dudes, today I'm going to be talking about an over-the-door organizer, a new bag pattern that I've been writing for knitting and crochet supplies, art gallery floral fabrics, the January Minikins challenge. The book review will be for Pom-pom animals. I'll be demonstrating how I fussy cut for English paper piecing, and there's a great giveaway at the end. I'm Sarah Lawson from Sew Sweetness. Thanks so much for joining me for Social Sunday, my weekly sewing chat. Hey everyone, happy Sunday. Thanks so much for joining me. I see Patsy's watching from Mississippi. Betty's also watching, Kathy from Tennessee, Jacqueline from Pennsylvania. So thank you everybody so much for joining me for Social Sunday. We were watching the comments come through before the show started, and I'm amazed at how many people are chatting beforehand, both on Facebook and YouTube, but especially on YouTube. There were, I think, over 300 comments on YouTube before the show even started. So thanks for popping in early and chatting with your fellow bag ladies and bag dudes. So I've got a couple things to talk to you about, and then we're going to jump over to my favorite, the notion of the week. I apologize if I sound a little bit sniffly tonight. I've had a cold all week, and I feel like I'm finally rounding the corner, but it wasn't that big, the biggest deal in the world, but the cold definitely kept me up at night when I couldn't breathe, so not a good thing. So I'm hoping to get a good amount of rest tonight. My brother was in town visiting this week from Colorado, and he brought me these chocolate covered bananas. I don't know if you've ever seen these. These are from Austria, where my mom was born, and it's sort of banana puree covered with dark chocolate, but they're really yummy, and there's a lot in the box, so I've been kind of scarfing those down. It's my dad's birthday tomorrow, so happy early birthday, Dad. I'm sure my mom and dad are watching. A reminder, we're collecting recipes through January 10th, which is this week. That's the deadline. So if you'd like to participate and send your very favorite recipe in, the instructions for how to do that are in the description, so you can find out where to email your recipe and just a few very simple instructions for sending that in. And again, the deadline for that's January 10th. Robin Dunn will be compiling all of the recipes and creating a PDF file or an ebook to distribute to everyone for free. So I hope you'll participate in that. I'm looking forward to picking up some new recipes for baking as well as for cooking. Also, Michelle Graham is running a Valentine's Day Sew Sweetness swap, in case you missed out on the one that she ran for Secret Santa over the holidays. The deadline for signing up for that swap is January 13th, which I believe is next Sunday. The link is in the description for that, so all you need to do is a couple really quick things to sign up, and there's more information in that link. So if you want to read more about that, check the link after the show. As a friendly reminder, just about everything that I talk about during Social Sunday are things that I've purchased myself. So these are not things that I'm getting paid to talk to you about, but just cool things that I found that I'd like to share with you. And everything that I schedule myself to talk about, I link to in the description. So if you're interested in finding out more about any of the notions, fabrics, books, or projects that I talk about during Social Sunday, just check that link in the description and you can find out more there. So my favorite, as always, the notion of the week. Since Christmas has just come and gone, I got on the internet last week and I was looking at gift wrap organizers. So there was a huge selection of different gift wrap organizers. The reason I was looking for those is because I thought they would be perfect for holding rolled up interfacing, cork, or leather, whatever you're using. So basically, if you're making bags, this might come in handy for you. A lot of the organizers that I found for gift wrap actually go under the bed, so different containers, hard containers or soft containers. A lot of them went under the bed, which for me, we have a really small studio, so that doesn't really work for me. So I was looking at some that actually went over the back of a door. So I found one that's really cool and affordable. It was around $20 before shipping. This is what the box looks like. I found it at the Container Store. So it's got 4 separate compartments at the top, and they're stabilized with a metal strip, so they're strong and they can hold a lot of stuff. And then there's a big bin at the bottom, which is also detachable. And this is perfect for your rolled up interfacing or cork fabric. So we weren't able to get the camera situated to have a live shot of the organizer, but I set it up earlier today and I took a few photographs just so that I could share how I have it over the back of our door. So Danny's going to post those photographs that I took now. The really nice thing about this organizer is that it has two metal strips that go over the back of the door. The metal strips are stabilized with rubber so they won't scratch or damage your door. And here's what the sort of the 4 organizers look like. I put my rulers in some of them, work in progress, and there's the removable bin that goes on the bottom. So I've got interfacing and cork fabric rolled up in there. And as I said, you can take that bottom large bin off and move it around, clean it out and hook it back on. And my most favorite thing, well, my second favorite thing about that, besides the big bin at the bottom, is that there's also optional hooks that can go underneath the bottom of the door, just like at the top. And so that really stabilizes the organizer so that it doesn't move around or kind of shift around under the weight of everything that's inside the bin. So out of all the over-the-door organizers that I looked at, this one was my favorite. I thought it was pretty economical in regards to price. I found another organizer at the Container Store that goes over the door, but it actually, you have to kind of drill it into the door, which I didn't quite like that because it was more or less permanent. Also, the price point of that other organizer was close to $100, which this one was much cheaper. So I really liked this one. If you're interested in checking it out, there's a link in the description, and I only found it in gray, which of course I would like it in a bright color, but gray does the trick, and I like the different storage spaces and adding extra storage in the sewing room. So I have a question for you. Let me know in the comments, how do you store your interfacing and cork? I like to keep my cork rolled up or leather just so it doesn't get creases in it. Those are difficult to get out. Interfacing, sometimes I have on the bolt or folded up, but I do prefer to have everything rolled, which makes that organizer really handy. All right, so I've been working on a new pattern this week for a bag to hold knitting or crochet supplies. So in the process of writing this pattern, I realized that knitters or crocheters want very specific things in a bag. So what started out as a single design for a knitting or crochet bag morphed into designs for 3 separate bags. So I have just the first version of the bag here to show you. I'm going to be sewing up the second and third versions hopefully tomorrow. So I'm calling this the yarn minder bag. So it's got mesh in the front of the bag for holding different knitting needles or crochet hooks. This particular version has a zip top and some grommets in the top, and you can see I've sort of fed a piece of yarn through the top, and then there's also storage space in the lining. So I have an additional version without the zipper and with no grommets, with sort of a little flap at the top of the lid, because I've done some research and I found that some knitters or crocheters don't like their yarn going through grommets or to have a zipper. So there's a separate version for pleasing those knitters or crocheters. And there's 4, let me hold this up to the camera so you can see. So 4 dividing spaces inside the bag for holding either 4 different colors of yarn, yarn for several different projects. And I've got, I think the correct pronunciation is skein, but correct me if I'm wrong. So each section can hold 3 or 4 skeins of yarn. And I actually don't know how to knit or crochet, but I bought this yarn last year in the hopes of learning, so I've got some of the yarn in there. My friend requested what she was calling a scissor leash, so I've got this on here. I'm calling it a scissor minder. It's attached with a swivel clip to keep your scissors always handy. You can also slide the scissors in the pocket over there, and it's got an adjustable strap. So again, this is just version 1 of the bag. There's going to be another version with a flap on the top, and then a third version with a drawstring and sort of an opening on the top, because as I said, I've done some research and different knitters or crocheters wanted different things in their knitting bag. So that pattern is called the Yarn Minder bag. That'll be out at the end of this month, at the end of January, as part of the next 4-pack video bundle, which will be 4 brand new videos and 4 patterns, including the sling backpack. That'll be in there. Those will also be sold separately. So if you're only interested in 1 or 2, so if you're only interested in the yarn bag, that'll be separate, as well as the video as well. So really excited about that one, and I had a lot of fun working on that pattern. Okay, so the new fabric in my stash this week. I have a couple fabrics to show you, but there's a main floral that I was really excited about. So I'm going to pop over to the side camera and show you these new fabrics from Art Gallery Fabrics. So I purchased these from Hawthorne Threads. So let me show you sort of the supporting prints. These are all from Art Gallery Fabrics. Just different random prints that I picked up that I thought were kind of nice. These small florals. This big floral was the one that I really did the main shopping at Hawthorne Threads for. I just really could see this in a bag since it's such a large scale print. The background is navy, and I just liked the different pops of equal pops of blue and pinks and fuchsias. So this one will be really quick this week. I'm trying to use up my fabric as quickly as possible. But again, these are all from Art Gallery Fabrics, and the link is in the description for Hawthorne Threads, which is where I purchased these guys from. All right, so I have another question for you. Let me know in the comments, since I just showed you that lovely floral, I want to know what your favorite flower is. So go ahead and type that in the comments right now, either on Facebook or YouTube. My favorite flower, I think, is the sunflower. I just love that these flowers are so huge. I love that they provide seeds, which you can just kind of go and pull one out. They're just happy. I imagine a happy smiling face when I think of sunflower. So that's my flower. I wanted to remind you that the January Minikins Challenge is for the Metro Double Zip Pouch. So this is what the pattern looks like. It comes in 3 different sizes. It's part of Minikins Season 2. So we're starting off the Minikins Season 2 challenges this year with what I thought was the easiest pattern of the bundle, the Metro Double Zip Pouch. And it's got the 2, obviously, because of the name, the 2 separate zippers. And if you prefer, I've seen a lot of iterations of this bag where the maker used 2 different fabrics. So a separate fabric for the pocket, which is right here, and then a different fabric for the main panel, which is the fabric that's right below this first zipper. And I think using the 2 different fabrics makes it look really nice because it makes the features pop, and you can use coordinating prints if you like. For mine, I just used all the same fabrics, but that's another design idea, using 2 separate fabrics to make it look a little bit fun and a little something extra. So if you'd like to enter the challenge, it's going on through the end of January, which is January 31st, and the link is in the description. You can just go and upload a photo as soon as you get one made, or if you've already made a Metro Double Zip Pouch, perhaps you made one in October when the Minikins Season 2 bundle first came out, you're welcome to upload an older photo as well. And again, link is in the description for that. So Danny's favorite part of the Sunday show, we like to ask all the bag ladies and bag dudes to let us know in the comments. Go ahead and type that now, either on Facebook or YouTube, bag lady or bag dude. I always love seeing all the bag lady and bag dude comments come through. We love our Sew Sweetness community. I feel like it's the most supportive around. I was just thinking, Violet was listening to a song in the car this morning when we were out, and it's called Biscuits by Casey Musgraves. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but basically the point of the song is about treating people how you'd like to be treated, and how you don't get ahead or it doesn't make you feel better when you put someone else down. And I feel like in our community we've got that going. Everyone's always got kind things to say, helpful comments or answers to people's questions in the Facebook group or in the chat during our live shows. So we really appreciate you. And thank you so much for watching the shows and being part of the community. All right, my book review for tonight is a book that I've been looking forward to receiving in the mail. I feel like it's just about the cutest book ever. So I'm gonna pop over to the side camera again and show you the book that's called Pom-pom Animals. Okay, so this is what the cover of the book looks like. And it's definitely, in my opinion, I've seen pom-pom animal or pom-pom project books before, and I thought they looked really cutesy and almost juvenile, but these are cute but in a beautiful sort of way. So let me show you everything that's inside the book. So the projects are in the first half of the book, and then the instructions are in the second. So let me just flip through all of these. There's some inspiration for what to do with the pom-poms, kind of wear it as a pin or brooch. You can decorate, certainly use them as little toys for kids, or decorate your home or other craft projects with them. All right, so let me jump in and show you all the projects. So there's a ton of different animals represented in here. Here's the chipmunk, the Douglas squirrel. I'm going to try to hold this so that the shine from the book doesn't take away from your viewing. There's 2 different rabbits in the book, and I don't know, some of these animals look really realistic to me. Here's an adorable tiny little hedgehog. That's so cute. A red panda and 3 different hamsters, different colors of hamsters at least. There's a toy poodle, a Pomeranian, two different styles of cats. There's some sparrows, and this is not just the head of the sparrow, the whole body is represented. There's some little budgies. There's 3 different styles of owl in this book. There's a panda, a koala, a fox, and a wolf. Just so many animals. A male lion and a female lion. There's a sloth. That's so cute, that sloth. The sheep is also adorable. And let's see, the bear, I think the bear looked about one of the easiest projects in the book when I was flipping through the instructions. The polar bear also looks easy. And then there's a seal, an otter. So cute. So it shows you right here how to make the pins. There's some more pictures of some more sparrows. And then the instructions show you exactly what to do. Let me flip through to the instructions right now. So all the materials that you'll need to make these projects, they talk about those in the book. So to make the actual pom-poms, they used clover pom-pom makers, which I also linked to in the description in case you're interested in seeing what those clover pom-pom makers look like. Those are 4 different sizes, and this is what the sizes look like in the actual pom-poms. And then they also talked about the yarn and the yarn colors that they use for the projects, but of course you could use similar colors of yarn. And then other materials like the eyes and the noses that they used for some of the animals. So the instructions are for every single project, again using the clover pom-pom maker, and they tell you because some of the animals are more than one color. The bear over here is just all brown, but some of the animals are more than one color, and so they detail in the instructions where to start off wrapping each of the yarn colors in that particular project. So there's full color step photos and explanations for each of the projects. I'm just going to flip through a couple right now. They show you how to add the eyes and the ears and other features of each of the animals, and I thought everything was really well explained. And at the back of the book are the templates for all of the extra pieces, ears, beaks, and things like that. So just about the cutest book I've ever seen. I'm definitely going to try to make some of these. Of course, I'll probably start off with an easy one like the bear. But again, this book is called Pom-Pom Animals, and I linked to it in the description. I know it's not exactly sewing related, but it was just a really fun book that I found that I wanted to check out in person. So my demonstration for tonight will be how to fussy cut for English paper piecing. So if you're not familiar with English paper piecing is a method of sewing fabric onto either cardstock or paper or some other form of backing, and then sewing all of the pieces together by hand. So here's a pouch that I made last year using English paper pieced hexagons. So as you can see from this particular project, all of the hexagons are each different fabrics, and while I fussy cut them, it wasn't as important to duplicate the design since I used just all different fabrics. Here's a quilt that I was working on, my long-term quilt project. This is from the book called The New Hexagon, and there's a free quilt along to go along with the book called the Millefiore New Hexagon Quilt Along. So here's where fussy cutting your pieces for English paper piecing, or EPP, comes in handy. So I'm going to just open up one of my pieces, one of my rosettes that I've been working on. As you can see, this is a really big piece. Let me try to hold it up so I can show you the example. As you can see, all the squirrels, they look pretty much exactly the same on each of the diamonds. As you can see, the squirrels look the same. And in fact, on the green pieces over here with the polka dots, this is actually a hexagon, and because I fussy cut it, I was able to sort of extend the circle from this half to the second half. And basically this whole quilt was made using fussy cutting, and here's another example of that. This is a smaller piece, so I think I'll have an easier time holding this one up. So as you can see, all of these bumblebees in the dark print are fussy cut, and I also fussy cut the chipmunk, and this is actually two different diamond shapes. So I fussy cut it so the first half of the chipmunk was on this piece, and the second half of the body was sort of continued onto the second piece. So I'm going to show you in the side camera how I prepared these pieces, how I cut them out, and how I prepare them for hand sewing. Okay, so first off, whether you're working from this book, The New Hexagon, or some other pieces, I traced off all of my pieces for each of the blocks onto Quilter's template plastic. So if you're a quilter, you may be familiar with the template plastic. It's just a flexible, sort of clear, frosty, see-through plastic. So what I did for each of the pieces, and you can find this at your local craft store. Let me find a pen over here. So what I did to get these pieces onto the Quilter's template plastic was I took my ruler, and I'm going to try to hold the ruler so it's not super, super shiny. But I took my ruler and I just transferred the lines for this diamond shape, which is what I'm going to demonstrate for you tonight for the fussy cutting. So I went ahead and used my ruler to cut out this diamond shape. Okay, so I'm just going to use my paper scissors to cut this out. And then let me move this book out of the way here. So I actually only need to cut this particular shape out once. So even though it's used several times in the book, once I have my piece cut out from the template plastic, I can just reuse this over and over. So here's the end game, what I'm working towards. So here's my fabric. I've attached it to, I'll talk about this paper in a second, but this is a prepared piece that I can then hand sew together to create that quilt. So let me show you how I would fussy cut to get another piece like this with the squirrel in the same exact position. Okay, so I already have my piece of template plastic, which is what I used to cut out this first piece. So let me just briefly show you what I did to get this guy cut out. So while I was cutting out that first piece on either the right side or the wrong side of the fabric, once I determined where I wanted my squirrel, before I cut the fabric out, and I don't know if you can see it, let me try to hold it up so the light from the pencil picks up. There we go. You can probably see that shine. I drew with my pencil sort of a really quick outline of the squirrel and important details in the fabric, like the flower up at the top. So every time I need to cut another piece of the squirrel fabric, I just go ahead and lay the Quilter's template plastic out using the pencil marks directly on top of the fabric. And then I'm going to take my friction pen, or you can use chalk, whatever you're using for your marking tool. And then I just drew around the template plastic. Okay, so that's step number one. So as you can see from this prepared piece, I have got a certain seam allowance folded back to the wrong side of the fabric. So after we get this transferred to the fabric with the template plastic, step number two is that I always use a bit of cardstock, and you can find this at your local art supply or office supply shop. It's just a little bit thicker than regular computer or printer paper. So the next step is that I would take this, and you can certainly lay it out on your paper so that it's the most frugal. But I took this out on the cardstock and I drew around my template plastic shape so that I can add the seam allowance. So I took my ruler and added, I like to use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance for English paper piecing. So I'm just going to take my ruler and draw sort of a 3/8 of an inch margin around the outside of my piece. Okay, so the next step is to cut everything out so that I have a frame over here. So I cut around the outside of this piece, and then I cut this center piece out to kind of make a frame. So this is my seam allowance. And I'm going to take this frame and I'm just going to lay it so that it lines up with the lines that I drew from the template plastic. And then I'm going to draw around my frame. Okay, so the next step after doing that is to cut out a piece of adhesive applique, fusible adhesive paper. So this is the applique paper that I use. I linked to that in the description, but I use that to trace a piece using my template plastic. And then I'm going to fuse this to the wrong side of the fabric. So the shiny side of this fusible applique paper is going to go against the wrong side of the fabric. Let me turn my iron on and get that warmed up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to fuse this paper down, and because I didn't turn my iron on sooner, it's going to take a second to heat up. And you can use a bit of steam if you'd like, or you can use a dry iron. Either one will work. Okay, and because I used a friction pen, I'll have to transfer again the markings from my frame. So you'll probably likely want to use that frame to draw on the wrong side of your fabric after you've ironed your fusible applique paper down first. Okay, so that's properly adhered. I'm going to draw my piece on here once more, and then I'm going to use this outer line to cut out my fabric. And it's starting to disappear. My ironing board's a little bit warm still, so my lines are already disappearing on me. Okay, so the main issue with fussy cutting for English paper piecing is that it can potentially, depending on the size of your design, waste a bit of fabric. So if that bothers you, you may choose to fussy cut smaller designs rather than larger designs like this squirrel. However, I kind of like the look, and I just make sure to use a fabric that I have a little bit of extra of. Okay, so I've got my piece cut out. So to get my fabric pressed toward the wrong side along the seam allowance, I like to use this Fons and Porter glue stick. So I'm going to pull my iron back over here, and I'm going to glue one edge at a time. So I've had this glue stick for a while, so it's starting to lose color, but normally the glue looks blue until it sort of meets the air. So I'm going to fold back my fabric, and I'm going to use my iron to set the glue in place. And then I'm going to continue working my way around the other three edges. So it's best to use this glue on an area of the ironing board that's not super hot. So I tend to prepare a whole bunch of pieces at once, and as I'm working, I try my best to shift around to different areas of the ironing board so that I can work on sort of a cooler area so my glue doesn't set immediately after I apply it. Okay, so after you've got all four edges glued down, this piece is ready, and it's ready for some hand sewing. So let me flip my first piece over and the second, just so you can see that they're matches, and they are. And so this is just a really quick and easy way to fussy cut. And because I wrote on the template plastic, oops, this is the one that I wrote on. Because I wrote on the template plastic with pencil, when I'm done with this piece and ready to use it with a different design, I can just go ahead and erase the pencil and go ahead and use it next time for a different portion or a different design on the fabric. So I hope you enjoyed that look at fussy cutting for English paper piecing. I had a few requests for demonstrating that recently, so I thought today should be the day, and it was a nice reminder to pull out this project and remember that I really did enjoy sewing by hand with the English paper piecing. So I definitely need to prepare some pieces so that I can get to sewing on the couch in the evenings when we're watching a bit of TV. So I'd like to invite you now, if you're watching on Facebook, if you enjoy our sewing videos, our live chats, our bag making videos, to go ahead and hit the share button on Facebook right now to share this sewing video with your other friends on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, I hope you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel if you aren't already. And regardless, likes and shares help us out so much, and the like button looks like a thumbs up on Facebook or YouTube, so we really appreciate the likes and shares, and thank you so much for doing that. So the winner of last week's giveaway, I did not write that down again. I know this happened a few weeks ago, but I think I was so busy preparing for the demonstration for tonight, I did not write a winner down, so I'm going to have to do that as soon as we get off from the live chat later tonight. I'm so sorry about that, But let's answer some questions. And again, as soon as we're done from our live chat, I'll look up that winner's name and I'll post that on the live show links on YouTube and Facebook. So if you have a question for me, let me know in the comments, either a sewing related question, bag making related question, question about a notion or tool. Go ahead and type that in the comments right now. Danny's going to post a few of those on the screen and I'll answer as many as I can before we get over to this week's giveaway, which is a good one. I have some cork to give away as part of this week's giveaway. Hope says, why do you use the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance for this? So you can either use for the English paper piecing a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I've seen it represented both ways, and when I first started English paper piecing as a newbie, I felt a little more confident in that bigger 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, but either one will work for the English paper piecing. Sonia says, can you sew over the glue stick? Yes, in fact, that glue stick is water soluble, so it won't gum up your needle, and then when you're finished with your project, you can go ahead and throw it in the washing machine. I also forgot to mention that those fusible papers are also water soluble, so if you've done some English paper piecing before, if you've used cardstock in the past, you know that you have to remove the paper cardstock from your pieces before you finish your quilt. Not so with that fusible applique paper. You can actually just leave those papers in, and I've done it before with another foundation paper pieced quilt that I've made, because I also like to use these papers for foundation paper piecing. I actually machine quilted the quilt myself, left the papers in, and then when the quilt was completely finished and the quilt was bound, I just washed it in the washing machine and those papers dissolve because they're water soluble. So the glue and the papers are both water soluble, which is really fun and helpful. Kim says, can you use a machine to sew those or just by hand? Not a skill I am good at. You can definitely sew hexagons by machine. I've done it before. I know it sounds super crazy, but I actually made in the past a wrap dress made with all hexagons, quilting cotton hexagons, and I did those by machine. So there's a method, perhaps I'll show you on a future live show, but there's a method for sewing the seams. I believe it's called Y seams, where you don't sew from edge to edge, you leave a bit of an opening, and I marked the bed of my sewing machine so I could get all my hexagons lined up. But it was a few years ago since I made that wrap dress. Perhaps I'll pull it out and show it on a future show. Hillary says, please explain what is medium weight interfacing and what makes it medium. So this is a really tough thing, and why I like to be very specific in my patterns when I'm recommending interfacings, because I've seen different interfacings especially referred to as medium weight, and they're totally different thicknesses of interfacing. I feel like medium weight interfacing is most commonly referred to that I've seen. For example, Pellon Shape Flex is referred to as a medium fusible interfacing, medium woven fusible interfacing. So different manufacturers or even different pattern designers might recommend generic terms like medium weight, ultra thick, heavyweight interfacing might be different things to different people. So that's why I always like to be very specific in my patterns. But again, that medium weight, the most common interfacing that I've seen referred to as medium weight is the Pellon Shape Flex or SF101. Terry says, what is the name of the fabric for your yarn tote? So the fabric that I used for this was a fabric that I found on Spoonflower. I went on Spoonflower and I did a search for yarn, and I thought this very appropriately looked like oversized looking yarn. I posted the link a few weeks ago on a past episode of Social Sunday, but it was from Spoonflower, and I actually purchased 2 different fabrics from Spoonflower that looked like yarn. There's another one in one of the other versions of the knitting bag that I'll be making that kind of looks like a rainbow knit sweater. So really cool fabric over there on Spoonflower. Brenda says, do you trim off the dog ears, and how do you fussy cut the other half of the squirrel? So let me pop over and grab that because that's a really good question. So I leave those dog ears on there. It's helpful for when you'll be attaching the pieces together. And the way that I actually fussy cut, for example, this chipmunk, because this was 2 different diamonds of fabric, you'll use that same method for, let me grab the 2 pieces of the template plastic. You'll use that same method for fussy cutting. So you'll draw, say, the front half of your squirrel on the one piece of plastic, and you'll draw the second half of the squirrel. You'll lay it on the fabric, both of them at the same time, and you'll draw the second half of the squirrel on the second piece of template plastic. This method tends to waste even more fabric though, because you need to add that little border with the seam allowance on. So you can't use the same area of the fabric for fussy cutting that way, because you need to find the second half of the squirrel or whatever the fussy cut piece is in a different area, because you need to, remember, you need to add the seam allowance. But that's basically how you'll do it if you need to get two different pieces, the same design onto two different pieces and have it be continuous. And you need to be as exact as possible, which is why drawing the pencil on the plastic and lining everything up really helps, because when you sew it together, you don't want the design of the animal to be sort of offset. So you can kind of see from here that chipmunk, it looks like it's just one piece of fabric when it's really two. So when you're sewing everything together, you want to just double check and make sure everything's also lining up as it should while you're hand sewing. Mirta says, when will the next 4 new projects be coming out? So that'll be at the end of January. Seeing as how the way things are going this month, likely January 31st. And we generally offer the 4-pack video bundle for about 9 days, and then the bundle goes away forever, although the patterns and videos can always be purchased separately. Marie says, I wanted you to know I bought the timeline game for each of my adult children for Christmas, and what fun we had. My Smarty Pants son only won 1 game. Thanks for the recommendations. Thank you. I'm so glad you liked that game. There's a series of games, if you missed that episode of Social Sunday, called Timeline. There's one for animals. There's one for inventions. There's one for different periods of history. And basically the object of the game is to get all of the cards. Everyone starts off with 4 cards. You want to place when it's your turn, you want to place your card in the order that it falls on the timeline. So for the animal one, there's different options, the length of time that the animals live, or the size of the animal. We usually choose the length of time that animals live, because it's really surprising to find out some animals, like insects, live days or weeks, and some animals live to be about 100 years old. And there's also inventions. There's different series of games. Sequence is also another fun game that I forgot to tell you all about, but if you like card games, Sequence is a really fun game to play. Gloria says, Sarah Lawson, is the paper you used for the hexagon pieces fusible, and can you pull it off? So you can, perhaps you've done this with some of your interfacing before. If you iron it on to the wrong area of the fabric and you need to pull it off, you can pull off both the glue and the paper. So I'm opening up one of my hexagons that I just made for you on the show, and I'm going to show you how the paper can be removed, or if you prefer, since it's water soluble, you can just spritz it with water and that paper will actually dissolve, which is really cool. So let me try to pull this one apart. So I'm pulling this one open. So I got all the glue peeled back, and I'm going to pull that paper off too. So the paper, probably because I used a little bit of, I had the steam on, but the paper does start to peel off. I feel like it would be just easier if you place it incorrectly, just to spray it to get it to dissolve, because it's coming off in several different pieces. But yeah, the paper can come off if you've chosen wrong and ironed it onto the wrong place. Yeah, it seems like the water would be a little bit easier though.
So you have multiple questions, people asking how to price their bags they make.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Show number on it.
Yes, so I don't, Danny says there's several questions coming through on how to price your bags that you're making and selling. I admit I've never sold a bag that I've made before, but we did do a show later in the year in 2018, and it's on the YouTube channel. It was a panel discussion for how to make and sell bags. So my panel was comprised of different walks of, not different walks of life, but different areas that people were selling. So selling online on their own website, selling on Etsy, selling consignment in a store, which in this case in my panel discussion was a Hallmark store, selling, using social media to sell, sort of to take pre-orders, mass pre-orders before you sold. So there were all different ways that people were selling bags, and we talked about pricing as well. So if you want to check that out, I think it was about an hour-long discussion, and it's on the YouTube channel. You can find it there.
People said there's spreadsheets in the groups too, in the tab.
Thank you. If you check the Facebook group in the file section of the group, which if you're looking on the computer, the file, the different tabs will be on the left-hand side. If you're looking on a tablet or a cell phone, the different tabs will be on the top. And the options would be photos, files is the one you're looking for. There's a file on pricing in the Facebook group. What else can I tell you about pricing? If you missed last week's episode of Social Sunday, I reviewed 2 different books specifically geared toward sewing and selling your bags. So you might want to check that out. Sewing to Sell, I believe, was the name of the first book, and More Sewing to Sell. Those were both helpful, and I showed those again. That was last Sunday. One more bit of information in regards to selling your bags that I've heard in the past was take the cost of your materials for making that bag and multiply it by 3. For sure, you always want to make sure that you're getting paid for your time. You don't want to price your bag the same price as what it costs you, the materials, the fabric, interfacing, and hardware. You want to make sure you're getting paid for your time too. That's really important. Laura says, Sarah, question, what is the one quilt project you've wanted to tackle but were afraid to start, your unicorn quilt? So let's see, I've always wanted to make a Dear Jane quilt, which is like a combination of pieced, smaller pieced blocks, some more applique. Let's see, I always wanted to make a Millefiori quilt, which is what this is. I feel like I've been stalled on this for the past couple years. I used to take these pieces to the swimming pool over the summer when my kids were taking swimming lessons. But because when you're taking your quilt to work on it, when you're out and about, it's really important to prep your pieces first. And I guess I haven't found, or I haven't made time to prep pieces to continue working on this quilt, but I really should, because I feel like it's going to be a really beautiful project and something that I've always wanted to make. So this is probably the quilt, the Millefiori quilt. One day, hopefully, I will finish it. Deb says, is there a cheat sheet for beginner bag makers? I want to make sure to buy supplies before Minikin sets and don't want to be frustrated waiting to start projects because of no supplies. So the supplies can vary depending on the project. However, in regards to interfacing, I always use Pellon Shape Flex in every single bag that I make, so that's a good one to pick up and stock several yards of it if you can. I always use foam interfacing. There's several different brands of foam interfacing. I like using by Annie Soft and Stable, which is a sew-in foam. So those are the 2 main ones. Some bags might use other interfacings like Peltex, but for me, pretty much every bag that I make uses the Shape Flex and the foam interfacing. Zippers, I always like to stock zippers on hand so that I don't have to run out at the last minute for a specific zipper color. I like shopping at Zip It on Etsy, and I like buying bundles of zippers. I believe they have a bundle of 25 zippers in various sizes. I usually like to buy 2 different sizes, and I can always cut down the zipper if I need to get a smaller size. So perhaps you might consider buying just all 22-inch zippers in a bundle of 25. Select lots of different colors, and then you can have those in your sewing room for when you're ready to start on another project. Other items of purse hardware, I did a video, it's on my YouTube channel. You can find Purse Hardware Explained, so just do a search on YouTube and my YouTube channel for purse hardware if you'd like to see what different types I use for which bags, and I show some bag samples as well in that video. Yeah, so those are some of the basics to get you started as far as the materials. Carrie says, you mentioned a sewing table in a recent episode. Could you say the name of that again? Yes. It was Koala. So they make, like the animal koala, they make different desks, sewing tables, cabinets, and they're very fancy designs. I've always had my eye on this particular green sewing desk from Koala. Perhaps one day I'll have it if we have a large studio, but I don't have any room for any more furniture in here. So no Koala sewing table for me at the moment. Michelle says, Bronwyn, this t-shirt. I received this for my birthday from Bronwyn, who's watching the show from New Zealand. Since it was a gift, I don't know where it was purchased from, but I'm sure Bronwyn would be happy to help you if you send her, ask her perhaps in the Facebook group. That'd probably be the best way to ask, or maybe she'll just share it outright. But it's a Star Trek related sewing t-shirt, as you can see. All right, Danny's calling. He says that's it for the questions. So let me get over to the giveaway. And again, I apologize for not posting last week's winner. I'll get to that as soon as the show's over and get that posted. The giveaway for this week is 6 rolls of cork. So all you have to do to enter the giveaway is answer my giveaway questions. So I tried to pick a variety. I really love this pearl blue. It's a really nice color. We have some printed corks going up as well. All you have to do to enter the giveaway is answer my question, and I'll draw one randomly drawn winner at the end of the day this Saturday and announce it on next Sunday's show, hopefully. My giveaway question is, what month is your birthday? So all you have to do is let me know in the comments on either Facebook or YouTube. Go ahead and type the month of your birthday, and that will be your entry. As most of you know, my birthday was this past November, so it'll be a little while before I have another birthday. But interested to see when all of your birthdays are, looking through the comments after the show. So thank you so much for joining me for Social Sunday. I hope you had a great time. I know I sure did. And I'll see you again next Sunday for our next episode of Social Sunday. So have a great week and happy sewing. Bye, everybody.